So welcome to HEYA Inc. Fireside Chat, Team Power, Party, and the World. How China's political shift shape global orders post Fourth Plenum. So just a quick introductions about HEYA Inc. We are non-profit think tanks and people training academies that envisage to catalyze policy ideation through transformative development and diverse participations. We conduct research and devise sustainable policy framework through the lens of community. We provide transformative learning and development opportunities to the community. And last but not least, we form community advocacy coalitions to snowball policy reform momentums. Now, currently, our policy focus is on social security framework and advanced industries, as well as education reform that encompasses the new higher education blueprint. So our most recent involvement is the roundtable discussion in collaboration with ASLI for Budget 2026, as well as working with Ministry of Higher Education for formulating the new Malaysia Higher Education Blueprint 2025. Now it's going to be 2026, by the way, 2026 to 2035. All right. So to give everyone a context before we really start the fireside chats, so the Fourth Plenum refer to the fourth plenary sessions of the Chinese Communist Party Central Committee within a 5-year political cycles. So in Chinese word, more catchy word, they call it 四中全会. So these sessions are closely watched because they signal both China internal political priorities and future policy directions. As the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, remains the country's sole governing authority, the decision made at the plenum carry national and global significance. Now, you can imagine this fourth plenum is much like how the Perhimpunan Agong UMNO, which once shaped Malaysia policy direction in the 90s, right? So the fourth plenary sessions of the 20 central committees is especially important as it focuses on formulating and endorsing the economic framework for China next 5-year plan. Okay, so they call it this round 15规划, right? Also known as the 15 5-year plan. These frameworks will clarify China's approach to economic reform in the coming years, particularly regarding industrial upgrades, technology self-reliance, and domestic consumptions. Now, given China's central role in global trade and supply chain, the outcome of this plenum will be closely analyzed for signals on foreign economy policies, whether China intends to deepen global integrations, take a more confrontational stance in response to geopolitical pressures, especially with the US, or pursue a calibrated mix of both. So the international community will also assess whether the meeting introduced major institutional or governance changes, such as reform involving the party, state-owned enterprises, or the military, that would possibly shape future China's business environment and external relations. So to decipher all this, we are honored to have Associate Professor Dr. Miao Chaoping with us today. So for a quick introduction of Dr. Miao Chaoping is the Associate Professor and Director of the Institute of China Studies at the Universities of Malaya and a non-resident scholar at Carnegie, China. He received his PhD in Public and International Affairs from Northeastern Universities. He is the editor of Populism, Nationalism, and South China Sea Dispute with Springer, Researching China in Southeast Asia with Rolich, and Southeast Asia and China, a contest in mutual socializations with World Scientifics. He has published in various academic journals such as Cold War History, Ocean Developments, and International Law, as well as China Report, the China Review, Journal of Contemporary China, Asia Politics, Policy, Contemporary Southeast Asia, East Asia, and the rest. In addition, he has also published shorter pieces on media and policy-oriented online platforms such as Think China, East Asia Forum, the Asia Dialogue, and the rest. So welcome again to Dr. Miao. All right.
Yeah. Hi.
So let us have Dr. Miao to deliver his opening remarks. Dr. Miao, pass to you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wui. Good evening, everyone, or maybe good afternoon if you're from somewhere else, or good morning. Just to make sure you can hear me clearly, right? Okay. First of all, I would like to thank HEYA and Mr. Wui for inviting me to give this talk, actually a very brief talk, and then we have more discussions about the Fourth Plenum, which was just concluded a few days ago. The Fourth Plenum deals primarily the major agenda is the 15 5-year plan, as mentioned just now in the introduction. But it's actually generally unusual for the Fourth Plenum to deal with this because in the past Party Congress, it was always the Fifth Plenum. But because the previous plenum, the third plenum of the 20 Party Congress was delayed, and then there was some changes, and then now it turned to the fourth plenum to focus on this particular agenda. It's usually in the middle year of the 5-year, within a 5-year term of a party congress. And for now, it's the 20th Party Congress. So the actual 5-year plan, the 15 5-year plan, will only be officially adopted, approved, endorsed, the final version of it next year during the National People's Congress in March. So usually this is the first draft, and then the draft document actually was released a few days after the plenum was concluded. It was just released, I think, 2 or 3 days ago, with 61 major items. China today, one of the things that it is trying to showcase to the world, to tell the world, is that how its planning process has been a very successful tool to govern China's social, economic, and even political developments. It is saying that planning is actually an important part of China's economic progress and advances. The presidency, I think just 2 or 3 days ago, also very interestingly released a kind of a discussion draft about how he play a major role in guiding the process of this 15 5-year plan. He was telling his audience, his readers, he actually published an article about how he guided the process, that starting in the early part of the year, he was assigned as the chief of the drafting committee, with 3 other members of the Politburo Standing Committee being the deputy chiefs, and then how officially it was launched in February, and how the team went to different cities and provinces and different sectors to collect the opinions, and then how it was formed into a preliminary draft and then was open to the public to give inputs and comments, and also how it was also how the committee itself consulted party elders, senior people, or other leaders from the previous generations to give also their thoughts and inputs, and then before it was formed into a more complete or concrete draft, and also had to go through around 3 rounds of discussions at the Politburo Standing Committee level, and then 2 rounds of discussion at the Politburo level. And throughout the process, the entire country or entire party bureaucracy reach out to the different sectors to solicit opinions, inputs, in order to gather informations and put into draft. And in the words of Xi himself, say that this is a vivid demonstration of the process of how Chinese Communist Party practice democracy. It is not through electoral votes or party contestation. It is how the governing elite itself is willing to get in touch with the people or the different sector, and then get their inputs and then integrate those ideas into the policy process. So at least this is how China is trying to showcase to the world that their planning process works, and is able to guide China to make advances until in today's situation. The other things that I want to mention about the the Fourth Plenum. while the Fourth Plenum has a communique, at the end of it, issue a communique that basically focus on a large component of it is the communique is about the 15-5-year plan. And then I think after a few days, the more detailed um, 建议稿, which is kind of like the suggestion draft, and that will be the suggestion draft to be uh, forwarded to the National People's Congress next year for the full endorsement. But the suggestion draft is already out. You can check it out online. Then there's basically 61 items that the party has committed or has promised to their audience that this will be the major directions of change in the next during the 15-5 year the next 5-year plan. So among these 60 plus items, there are many, but I think if we want to just give a very rough major points, I think there is a strong assertion that China needs to double down its technological development and self-strengthening. I think this was already mentioned during the introduction. This was basically what was being observed by many observers in international community, that the understanding that technological development and self-strengthening which fit into the real economy, and Chinese Communist Party has been very insistent on developing the real economy rather than the financial sector and so on and so forth as the basis of economic strength in today's very complicated geopolitical world. It particularly highlight that China need to be a manufacturing 强国 power, or you can say a very strong power or superpower, 质量强国 quality, 航天 aerospace, 交通 transport, 网络 internet. Basically, this show that it needs to be uh, focusing very much on building its industrial foundation, further strengthening it with a lot of technology, innovation, science, manufacturing. These are the things that the Chinese Communist Party believe that this will help the party get through the global turbulence that is in today's world. The other thing that I would say that uh, should we should pay particular attention is the reassertion, I would say, of economic construction. There is a phrase that basically says 坚持以经济建设为中心, right? Basically, insistence of the central role of economic construction. Now, that phrase is actually something that is not new, and is actually for anyone familiar with Chinese modern history, is something that started basically during Deng Xiaoping's leadership, and has always been part of the party language. But actually, 2025, the communique, the 15-5 communique, if you compare that to the 14-5 communique back in 2020 and the 2025, that would be the 13-5 communique. Actually, this phrase was actually not there. For whatever reasons, that there was a sense that the party need to somewhat adjust the overwhelming focus on economic construction while balancing other challenges while the party faces a number of issues. So this phrase was absent in the past two communique that deal with 5-year plan, but is reinserted back in this year's communique. So that could be read as a signal that economic construction fundamentally would still be something that the party aims to pursue, together with many other objectives and goals. The third important aspect, I would say, is the point about the domestic unified market. That is their strategy to try to boost up the consumption and demand side. that the diagnosis basically is that the domestic market is still facing a lot of obstacles and blockage among different provinces or if among different localities that has reduced the efficiency, that has reduced the more or better smooth circulation of the domestic economy. And that will be something that the party would aim to tackle in order to increase domestic consumption and demand. So that would be the roughly the policy part of the fourth plenum. Of course, we can discuss a little bit more. But the other thing, of course, what also get most people interested would be the politics, the personnel changes, and that basically indicate some kinds of political struggle within the party. There were before the plenum was announced, there was already an announcement of a purge of 9 high-rank PLA generals. 8 of them were the Central Committee's members, and now they were all basically confirmed that they will expel from the party. But the number of Central Committee members not attending this plenum was also historically the highest. Only 168 of the members, Central Committee members, out of the 205 attended the plenum, and then 147 out of 171 alternate members attended. So that compared to the plenum, can see basically increase in figures like about 20 or 30 people basically not attending. So that indicates perhaps that the party is still very much focusing on purging officials that are seen as not aligned with the current political direction, and also still dealing with some of the very serious corruption issues despite more than 10 years of anti-corruption campaign. I think I will basically stop here just to give a very rough idea of what this fourth plenum has indicated or has shown to the world, and I'm happy to answer the questions that will be in the discussion session.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Niao. So we talk about this fourth plenum. So obviously it was discussing a lot in terms of economics in the 15 5-year plans. So here's the questions. Now, countries worldwide are buying more than ever from China, but domestic consumption is lagging, and government stimulus effort aren't really working. So that is the heart of a very big problem for China now, especially for the top leaderships, as it tries to stir a weakening economics through the volatility of the trade war with the US. Right. So the key agenda of the CCP Fourth Plenum is to discuss the 15 5-year plan and the blueprint of China futures economics. So what is the signal you observe in terms of economic policies, especially in the 5-year plan to curb the mentioned problems, namely low consumptions, weak social securities, yet a highly uncertain global trade environment? What is China proposing?
Well, as I mentioned, now they are actually trying to diagnose that the problem of domestic consumption is because of local protectionist measures that still pose problems for people to fully allow the different factors of productions or consumption to fully flow within China. If that is basically removed, China will have a bigger and stronger market to sustain their own consumption. But I think fundamentally, the Chinese leadership assessment is somewhat different from how the outside world understands. Yes, they do recognize the insufficient consumption and demand is a serious problem that the Chinese leadership needs to tackle this problem. And then if it is not addressed, it could drag down the economic growth in a significant way. But it is not a mortal threat to the economic health or vitality of China and the rule of the Chinese Communist Party. I think we have to understand that. we feel that it is something that is very serious, and it is serious, but it's not serious enough. Or is it serious enough for China to pursue a fundamentally different direction? I think that is not necessarily being seen by the leadership as serious as that. Their, their assessment or their judgment is that the they are doubling down on the production side, on the technological side, have secured China in sufficient um, bargaining chip or leverage for it to deal with a very challenging international environment. So the issue of the lack uh, of consumption and all these things, while it's problematic, is not a mortal issue. And the second thing I will say that most of the um, suggested policy or policy solutions sometimes are not as easy or as efficient as it's thought, because rising consumption, or raising people's confidence to consume more is not about just spending more money or welfare. It has to take a very fundamental or systematic approach to deal with certain different areas that people are concerned about. And the Chinese government has basically tried different approaches, and one of their major diagnoses that they need to stabilize and bring back the stability of the real estate. The real estate issue was the fundamental issue why people's confidence in consumption was declining. So they overshot during the COVID time, and now the current direction is to first deal with this real estate, and from there they will try to tackle other issues one by one. It is not the issue of just giving people more money, because this money will be burned and then there will be very little effect on consumption. So it's not as easy as a magical solution. There is no magical solution for this issue.
Yeah, probably whatever cash or whatever liquidations was poured into the system again is going back to might just go back to the property markets in a way. But if I were to ask if I were to ask you, Doctor, so what do you, if you were to pick, what would be the signal that you think the China government or the CCP would consider a real and urgent economic threat? What would the signals that would trigger them to think so?
Actually, the plenum, if you look at their preface, the first two paragraph, whether it's the plenum or the 建议稿, the suggestion draft, you could say that because these are the first two, three, or four paragraphs, is all there. They judge the China's economic fundamentals as actually healthy and strong. That's why I say that they don't judge the situation as serious as sometimes how outside of China, or maybe the Chinese people also think it's quite serious, but it's not in the eyes of the leadership. So what would be something that if they consider is fundamentally problematic? If they are being, I suppose, if their manufacturing is showing signs that they are declining, if their technology is not keeping up, if they are running out of pools where they can secure their production, the Chinese leadership believe very strongly production is the ultimate key of economic health. Uh, Only consumption and welfare, everything only follows from a very strong foundation in industrial production side.
Cool. So I think what we can seriously conclude for now is if we are to if we were to look for a signal which will really triggers the China governments to take more aggressive steps, that would be if they found themselves is lag behind in terms of technology competitions, or their manufacturing industry has totally slowed down, or they have faced some serious hinder in terms of continuously growing their manufacturing industries, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
They register about 5% growth, at least according to official statistics, which I think in their mind that would actually be sufficiently secure enough for them to continue the current pathway.
All right. Thank you so much. So we want to just switch our gear a little bit, to look into the very interesting scenarios over in Malaysia's, the interactions between Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim and the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and how would actually this have changed, the chessboard a little bit. So the Prime Ministers, Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim and Presidents of the United States of America, Donald Trump, held a bilateral meeting on 26 October in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Both leaders then announced the elevations of the bilateral relations to a comprehensive strategic partnerships. Now, considering Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim earlier diplomatic posture, including Malaysia's entry into the BRICS grouping, the strengthening of economic ties with China through major infrastructure collaborations, and including the Dongtie and the rest, and the rollout of a second 5G network involving China participations. So does the US-Malaysia Comprehensive Strategic Partnership signal a strategic realignment in Malaysia's foreign policies orientation?
I would say not necessarily a realignment, but it's a necessary statement of necessary balancing statement. We, or at least a lot of the international observers, have perceived Malaysia as somewhat deviating from its non-aligned and neutral posture. In the first few years of Prime Minister Anwar's leadership, the perception is that we are moving towards China. Uh, but I think our policy hasn't really changed. We fundamentally remain non-aligned and neutral. And this would be a good opportunity to be somewhat more balanced. Doesn't mean that we are any or China is any less important in Malaysia. This diplomatic engagement, it remains one of the most important. But the perception that the balancing act in Malaysia is a bit off balance now, I think is a little bit more balanced at the moment. I think China should also have confidence in Malaysia that whatever that is being announced or being portrayed in the past couple of days doesn't mean that Malaysia is shifting. In the same sense that the US should also be quite confident in Malaysia that in the during the initial years of Prime Minister Anwar's leadership, where the perception that we are seen as closer and closer to China, actually they should have also more confidence that Malaysia hasn't really shifted very much strongly in terms of our neutral and non-aligned foreign policy. The comprehensive strategic partnership is a label, it's a good label, it's a diplomatic label, but we have to look at the substance and how it's being carried out. We are comprehensive strategic partnership with a number of countries, with China, with Australia, I think with Japan, South Korea, maybe I have to check. But anyway, these are countries that Malaysia definitely see as very important for our national, whether it's economic interests or other interests. So putting the relationship with the US under this label, I think is fine. US is important to Malaysia in many aspects.
Yeah. So if we were to focus slightly a bit to a particular field, if I were to talk about rare earth, so how you think this strategic realignment, in this case, not really a strategic realignment, but rather a balancing act. So given China rare earth exports control targeting the US, while Malaysia is simultaneously emerging as a key processing hub that provides Washington an alternative supply pathway based on the treaty, based on the agreement signed. So could this be perceived by Beijing as a strategic leakage or negative signals? So what form of response or recalibrations might be expected from the Chinese side?
I don't think there will be much actually. I think we are right to utilize and leverage on these critical minerals to get more concessions, more opportunities to benefit ourselves, in regards to the relationship with the US. But I don't think China is going to be worried about this one. This is just going to change very little, I think, in China's or this is just going to affect very little China's overwhelming dominance in the processing of critical minerals. We will, of course, pursue our own national interests, and doing this doesn't necessarily mean that China's interests are directly harmed in a very significant way. So I don't think China will actually pay a very strong attention into um, this critical minerals arrangement with the United States.
All right, all right. So basically, from what Doctor is mentioning, so rare earth treaties with the US it uh, should be perceived as merely a business and a trade deals, rather than a strong geopolitical realignment tools with China or US, right?
Let me put it this way. I think I will agree that we will look at this as a business trade deal with the understanding it will have geopolitical ramifications, and with the understanding that people will read it that way. That is first thing. The second thing is that, as I say, we will benefit. The US will be able to secure a bit more critical mineral supplies from alternative sources. But I believe that this will not fundamentally solve the critical minerals shortage of the US and the critical mineral dominance of China. Despite Malaysia being a very important country, and player in this field, it will basically not be able to shift the current landscape that much.
Thank you for the further clarification. I think that is going to be a very useful signals and positionings about Malaysia's rare earth, US and China. This four critical element which is now currently entangled together. Now, if we are to enlarge a little bit to the perspective of Southeast Asian countries, so we see today that a lot of cost-effective products, consumer goods from China is now easily transported to Southeast Asian countries, and it has cost. And typically, if we talk about Malaysia's Chinese dominance was now evident in not only in the online business, is also in a lot of food and retail sectors, at the expense of small and medium enterprises. At least some companies have surfaced across these 2 years. So how should Malaysia react strategically towards the high up of foreign investment of China in this region, which in certain way would means flood the gate cheap goods, that in certain ways might jeopardize our local SMEs? What is your
I
thought on
fully,
this?
ag- yeah, I fully agree. This is actually a dilemma. There is no easy solution. Again, we can't shut our door. But we cannot say that well, if we continue the current pathway, then of course a lot of our domestic producers, especially SMEs, are facing very difficult challenges coming from China's competitors. And Chinese competitors are huge in numbers because as well, we talk about the Chinese domestic market is not very strong, so many of them would like to come out. And the problem is that the policy tools we have, but it's not sure how we can if most effectively use them. And maybe there are not enough policy tools or legislations to pick the kind of investors that we believe can benefit Malaysia and shut down others. Many of them come through MM2H. There is one way. There are others. The MM2H is, you cannot say that Chinese applicants you cannot apply because you are from the PRC. That will be discrimination, of course. It's supposed to encourage every other the rich retirees from other countries to come to Malaysia and then put some money and then maybe do some business. But this has become one pathway. For example, for the a lot of these small scale investors who come in that have become a competitive threat to our SME sectors. So maybe we can twist the MM2H policy for one example, to scrutinize more what some of them can or cannot do while they are using this scheme to come into Malaysia. That is for example one. But I have to say this is a very difficult dilemma. Maybe we also have to look at how some of the other countries have dealt with this. There are some that say that there are some countries that have imposed uh, a kind of a ceiling that investment below certain figure is basically prohibited. So in one shot that you basically prohibit whatever small scale investments that actually pose threats to our SME sectors. But that doesn't really address some of the bigger investments that could also become a challenge to our manufacturers. Now, this is one side of the coin. The other side is that some would, particularly the market-oriented economists will say that now it's time for us to upgrade ourselves. Should not be asking for government protection all the time. China is now the global player, and we have to be able to compete with a global player. We have to invest in technology. We can partner with China, even use their technology or use their expertise to penetrate the Chinese market or to penetrate other market, and we cannot just all the time believe that government will have to protect our local businesses. So there is another argument. And the other thing is that we have to look at if we undertake certain measures to protect or close off certain sectors, we have to check whether this is actually aligned with some of the free trade agreements where we are a member. Don't forget, we are a member of CAFTA, which also just have a upgraded version being signed. We are member of RCEP. We are member of CPTPP. Not all actions can be seen as completely legal. Of course, we can ban here and there, but not all measures can be completely legal under some of the commitments we made under these free trade agreements. So there is no easy solutions for this issue of what you mentioned.
If I were to extend this question further a little bit, so now if you look at our trade relations with China, currently we are exporting around 187 billion to China, but we are importing around 296 billion, close to 300 billions of imports from China. So in certain way, we are actually having a trade deficit like what Donald Trump used to describe. So would you have suggestions do we have a suggestion how is this something okay? Is this something healthy for Malaysia, or should we figure out a way to kind of balance the trade figure backs a bit? I know this question tends to be a little bit populist, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting one.
I think we have to first understand where those deficit come from, where those import come from. Sometimes some of the imports actually are good. If they are actually the kind of components and parts that we need in order for domestic manufacturing to produce things that we can also export to some other countries, maybe not to China, but maybe to some other countries. So there are certain areas, this especially will be quite clear, I think, in the E&E sector, because it's part of the industrial chain, part of the intra-industry trade, so to speak. And I suspect a significant chunk of this import from China is part of this intra-industry trade. And that should also that should be recognized as not something inherently problematic. What is more concerning for us is always the consumer goods that would be a significant economic problems or threats to our local SMEs that could not compete in the same skills or economic skill coming from China. That is where I think we have to take a more, or the government has to take more actions, policy measures to see how using whatever means to address the issue. I suppose one of the things that if we talk about tax, tariffs, non-tariff barriers, it's actually, as I say, we don't really, these are means that actually not in line with the membership of the free trade agreements that we have signed up to. but we can engage actually with the China side to discuss voluntary export restraint. That is something that on their side they can do. But of course, we will have to
Is that
leverage certain things, yeah, to see what give and take for them to actually impose voluntary export restraint. We are happy to partner with China, but it's not in a way that fully dominated by the Chinese production in our very small market.
great? Great. Thanks, Dr. Yang. We have almost concluded the first section, which we talk about, the economics interaction with China. So before we proceed to the next sections on politics or geopolitics, is there any question from the floor that you would wish to raise? You can always just raise your hand and then unmute and just let us know your name and where you're from, and then you can raise the questions. Is there anyone? Or if you are too shy, you can always type in the chat box and I will read it out. Uh, yeah, looks like there's none for now. Is there anyone? Looks like there's none for now. So we'll go to the second sections. In this case, so we would like to talk a little bit about U.S.-China geopolitical conflict, because in the Fourth Plenum communique, it has clearly mentioned that strategic competition. When it put in the context of strategic competition in China context, so of course it's with US, among major power, has grown more complex and the world is undergoing accelerated changes, which has been a key factor in drafting the next 5-year plan, with navigating the international situations and enhancing global China status now. Now, China is also positioning artificial intelligence and computing power as the major area of focus for China tech development over the next 5 years, as will semiconductors and high-end instruments, in keeping with the national strategic needs. Now, with the tech and geopolitical competition going aggressively, how would you foresee the future diplomatic relations between US and China, especially at the juncture of rare earth export control? And US actually threatened to respond with continuous technology sanction and high-rise tariff. How would you predict the outcome of the meeting of President Xi and President Trump in Korea?
Well, it is on and off, on again, off again. It seems like they got some agreement, and then somehow the agreement was seen as being screwed up by one side or the other. This is going to be I suppose this is going to be the repeating pattern in the years to come, in the remaining Trump presidency or even longer. They will temporarily the tensions will temporarily subside after perhaps the discussion within Kuala Lumpur also. There is these trade discussions, and for what they have uh, released to the public, they are saying that they probably got some preliminary agreement on certain things. That will be reinforced by Xi and Trump meeting. Actually, has China actually confirmed it? I'm not sure, but anyway, likely they will have some meeting and then they will conclude. And that will kind of slow down the tension a little bit, but it will flare up, I suppose, within a month or two due to another incident or something like that. I think one of the major key point exactly is something that you mentioned, critical minerals. The US now has strongly demand that this is one of the key things that China will have to loosen its control. I think China, in order to get the US to make some concession, is willing to do so, but it now realize that it has a so-called also a kind of a choke point where it can adjust accordingly. And the Chinese, given the tensions and given the geopolitical situation with the US, the Chinese likely will say that, well, I can export all the critical minerals for civilian use. And that will basically try to certify every export of critical minerals only to the civilian sector and prevent those those critical mineral supplies to be used in the military sector. That is actually very similar to what the US was earlier trying to do with the semiconductor to China as well. And when that happened, when the time of export and China can take it, uh, sweet time in processing this application and all these things, US will come back and say that now you are violating the agreement, that you will loosen the export control of the critical mineral. Now we will retaliate. And China will say, oh, we retaliate again. And then they will come to a sense that, oh, the retaliations will be too much for either side. And then they will try to come to some kind of agreement again. So I suppose this will be the continuous pattern. It is not good for investor because it is not stable, it's unpredictable. But I think that is going to be the pattern, unfortunately. Yeah, I think I try to answer that one. So that is going to be the pattern, on again, off again, kind of a situation between US and China.
Yeah, I saw someone actually raise hand. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our first question from the floor. Philip, you might want to raise your question to Doctor.
Okay, Doctor. I see a lot of coverage on Trump and our Prime Minister at the recent ASEAN forum, but the thing is, I have not heard any coverage of what China was doing. I mean, I believe China was also very powerfully represented, in Kuala Lumpur that weekend. So what do you think China got from this session, that we haven't been reading about? That's my first question. And my second question is, seeing that Anwar Ibrahim has just passed the baton and the chair over to the Philippines, and knowing where Philippines stand, with America and China, where do you see ASEAN to fit to be over the next couple of years?
Just talk about a little bit. So, is China still puzzling on what Anwar Ibrahim is trying to do? As a closure to the questions, shared by Philip. Thanks, Doctor.
I don't think China has too much issue of what Prime Minister Anwar is doing with the President Trump. Of course, this is just my own assessment. Maybe they are worried, but I don't think they are worried. I don't think they are too much puzzled. First, I think in terms of the optics, where there is a lot of coverage, I think it's very natural because Trump is a headline grabber. He get all the headline attentions. If Xi Jinping is here, maybe you will see a more coverage on the China side. Of course, Li Qiang is very, very important, but ultimately speaking, he's not the number one. Right? Number one is Xi Jinping, and Trump is number one. Originally, Putin also said he will come, right? So if Putin is here, I can guarantee you there will also be a lot of coverage on Putin as well. But among all the leaders that attend these ASEAN summits, of course, not to dismiss other leaders are important. You can imagine the attention will be on Trump. So I don't think it's something that is not normal. Second, of course, I think there is certain intention on Malaysia side to compensate for the lack of attention to the US-Malaysia relationship compared to what the China-Malaysia relationship in the past couple of years. So I think perhaps we want to actually highlight this a little bit more to give a little bit more stage for the US side to show they are very important in the region as well, which I think, again, is quite understandable in the way how we want to address this imbalance. The third thing about what China has done, while Li Qiang is here, it's the second time he is in ASEAN meeting. In Malaysia, he was here in May already, and then he came here second time. It's the third time he comes to Malaysia in the past 2 years. That plus Xi Jinping visit in April this year, plus our Agong's visit to China last year, and Anwar's occasional working visits to China. So I would say actually China, Malaysia have a lot of personal interaction as well. So don't be overwhelmed by this Anwar Trump interaction seem to get all the headline, but forgetting that we actually or our leaders actually have a lot of opportunities to interact with China. Had actually developed quite a good rapport with the Chinese leaders as well. Finally, the major item for Li Qiang here, there is a China +3, the CJK, not CJK, but the CJK plus ASEAN. There is one of the duties or one of the major obligations for between China and the ASEAN and the three dialogue partners. And then we have the upgrade of this KAFTA. I think this is the major agenda of Li Qiang's visit to ASEAN Summit. Is there another question, right?
Yeah,
Is
I think we saw another hand raised. Hi, Xiaowen. You might want to unmute and just raise the question to Doctor. Nice to see you.
Hi, Dr. Niang, thank you very much for the very interesting conversation on China. Actually, I'm quite curious. I know it's a bit of a long conjecture at this moment, but given how this you're mentioning the likely see Trump interaction in the next few years, right? I'm just curious that if you extrapolate along this trajectory, how do you think the US-China interaction will work out in the post-Trump and post-Xi era? Sorry, I know it's a long conjecture.
Yeah.
Just curious.
It's a prediction of what happened 5 years or 10 years later. We should
maybe just 5 years after Trump, let's
5
say.
years.
Yeah.
Right. This is being recorded, and 5 years later we can check whether what I say is correct or not. By 2030, I suppose roughly each side will know where their strengths and vulnerabilities are. I think actually by now it's already quite clear. But I think it will be even clearer by 2030. I think both sides will come to the recognition that well, this is the optimistic picture, of course, that 2030 will come to the recognition that they can't overcome each other and overwhelm each other the way they prefer. If they find a way to sort of preserve the relationship without overly being friendly to each other, I think that will actually be good already. Actually, if the US found ways to secure more dependable critical mineral supplies, and China found ways to secure a more secure supplies of the semiconductors, I think both sides can actually be more calm rather than now trying to use this as a leverage against each other. So I guess this is a very unscientific answer to what will happen in a 5 years time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Selwyn, and thanks, Doctor. I saw another questions. Collins, you might want to unmute and share your questions.
Hi, Doctor. I'm Colin. I'm from the University of Malaya. And in the previous sections, you mentioned that in this suggesting draft, actually Beijing is bringing back some more historical terms that put the economic development in a central role. And actually, this phrase had been disappeared in the previous document for a few years. And I also noticed that in this draft, it also removed the terms which is profound changes unseen in the center, and these terms is usually be seen as the features that China's raised tensions with or the competition with the West, especially with the United States. So I'm wondering, in your opinion, is it the signals that in the next maybe 5 years, China's will reconcile a bit of its assertive foreign policy stance and focus more on the economic development? Or do you have any other interpretation for this discursive change? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I think first, just about the term, I think what you mentioned is 百年未有之大变局吧, the unseen changes in centuries, right? That it is not, yeah. Actually, I think it is still very important. It may not actually appear in this particular because communique or document because it's not necessary for it to appear in these documents. It appear in the 20th the Party Congress reports, and then in the third communique. This will actually be sufficient enough for that to carry on as the major assessment. This term, the 百年未有之大变局, this term will not, I think, disappear in a short while. It will stay on for a long term because this is a fundamental assessment that has been concluded by the Chinese leadership, and that assessment tend to stay for a very long period of time. There are only two such assessments before. During Mao's time, it is 革命与战争, revolution and war. Deng Xiaoping say is 和平与发展, peace and development. Right now is neither war or peace, so it's something that is changing. So this is the kind of assessment that the Chinese leadership has given or has provided, and then you will stay on for a very long time. What was your another question again? About
No.
whether Chinese government will have a more reconciliatory foreign policy.
Yes.
Some would say actually Chinese foreign policy has become more reconciliatory compared to the early years of more assertive foreign policy. Some have say it has changed, has adjusted. Some will say that after having adjusted, now have become more assertive again. This is really hard to assess because it depends a lot of dynamic interactive factors. It is not necessarily determined by one particular actor only. It has to it has to come from whether the different actors interacting with China also has a more reconciliatory approach that will also create the kind of conditions whether China will continue to pursue more assertive or more moderate pathways. So it is very difficult to say whether in the next couple of years it will pursue this path, that path. And the assertive foreign policy, generally speaking, is not aimed towards many other countries as well. African countries don't feel assertive. It's usually the countries that have difficult relationship with China. So that again is not a generic description of what the overall foreign policy of China as well.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you. Thank you, Collins, and thank you, Doctor. So there's another questions coming in from Dr. Tay. Dr. Tay, the stage is yours.
Good evening, Doctor. Dr. Tay here.
Yeah.
In your opinion, with the recent victory parade happened in Beijing recently, do you think that the geopolitical or so-called the arms race issue will change some of the country how it look to China in particular US? Sir? Thank you.
It's really hard to say. The US, of course, does not want to show weakness, and very understandably so. And they still believe that its military capabilities okay, let me rephrase. We still don't know exactly directly how much the display of those weapons will affect the immediate situation. It will probably strengthen the determination of the US to catch up some of the weaponries or some of the systems that they find that China is actually making very strong progress and advance, that they will have to do so. That military spending is going to be on the rise, But in the short term, they probably will adopt a much more careful, careful posture. I think at the moment, the US military is not very sure whether they can actually win a fight in the Western Pacific. Some signs that show this declining confidence is supposedly the reported new strategy that will come out from the Department of War, not Department of Defense anymore, except that supposedly now the US will focus more on their own Western Hemisphere, and there is a tendency to actually withdraw from the global engagements. But that signal is not fully in display in the national security document on public yet. So we don't know whether there is true or not, but there are this kind of leak or no this kind of signaling or whatever it is from the current administration that show that they are actually a bit more careful right now for full military confrontation with China. That is one. I'm sure some of you have heard or read that there is a new report coming from the RAND Corporation that showed that suggests that the US should come to a more modus vivendi with China on the Taiwan issue and to discourage Taiwan to be more provocative or whatever it is. That report, of course, is not commissioned by the US government. It doesn't reflect the US government view, and people say that it's commissioned by a private sector and do so. Fair enough, but RAND Corporation is not a very normal think tank. Its reports in the past have always been quite influential or at least reflective of certain changing thinking in Washington, D.C. The fact that that report comes out also, I think, would be another piece of evidence, soft evidence, admittedly, that the US is looking into the this military competition with China less confident compared to before. So that will be how I look at how this display of advanced armaments have somewhat affected or somewhat changed the perception towards China in certain circles in the West.
Thanks, Doctor. I'm quite fascinated by the questions Philip raised just now when the ASEAN chairmanship would eventually transfers to Philippines next year.
Yeah.
So I would just want to top up a little bit things to base on that. So we ASEAN country is now like sandwiching between two major powers. Now, if I were to quote the extreme examples in Malaysian context, so Malaysia now has a treaty of rare earth with US, have agreement of rare earth with US. Should we or are we encouraged to continue our rare earth business with China? And if how should we position ourselves in such a context?
Actually, I'm not sure whether we will have a lot of opportunities to do real substantive rare earth business with China. China, if they want to just come here and do the very preliminary mining, it's not something that we want. We want, after all, the ability to learn, I would say, capture the processing technology. But this is something that Chinese government has actually forbidden. They treat this technology as state trade secrets. So even if the Chinese private sector critical mineral want to come and invest, they probably are not going to bring us the best technology that China possess at the moment. So maybe working with the Western partners actually makes more sense. We can work with China on other technologies and other things that actually benefit, and they will be much more willing to share. EV, for example, the electric vehicles. I think China is very much keen to let their EVs technology to be shared and adopted in other countries and to become the standards in the world, and then to build up the supply chain. We can work with China on this. Critical minerals, I think, is too much of a national security components for China. Yeah, I think they are unlikely to allow a lot of very important technological components in their investment. So if that is the case, then we don't really have to cultivate their investment in our critical mineral sector.
I see.
About the
So,
Philippines, yeah. I'm
Sorry,
sorry,
okay.
just because just now the question I forgot. There was this Philippines ASEAN chair. Yes, they are taking over. So they're going to be chair next year. I, of course, would foresee that the interaction with China will be much more cooler compared to what Malaysia is doing this year. There is a lot more activities given the state of relationship between China and Philippines. But I think Philippines, after all, will not so-called rock the boat. It has basically understood that ASEAN is not platform for the Philippines to assert its national security interests, right? It realized that with its other, the Quads, there's the other Indo-Pacific partners, the partners that they consider like-minded. ASEAN will be actually the platform for Philippines to still have some kind of interaction and engagement with China, given the bilateral track is under very strong stress. So Philippines, I think, will still value that ASEAN is a platform where certain things can still be discussed with China, and then they won't rock the boat in that sense. For sure, it will not be as, in terms of relationship with China, ASEAN-China, it will not be as high profile as Malaysia chair this year, but it will not going to be a lot of issues and troubles between ASEAN and China and the Philippines. They will just low profile, moderate. Maybe Philippines will elevate the partnership with the like-minded countries more, with the US and Australia more, sidelining China a little bit. But again, it's a 1-year thing. After towards the end of this next year, the new chair is going to come up and it's going to redefine, or not to redefine, but recalibrate the relationship in a different direction.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Doctor. I think that just now, one of Doctor, your perspective is really, really valuable to Malaysians, especially if I hope there is any personnel workings in MITI or workings in some of the Malaysian investment authorities, which we talk about if we were to have more investments to bring China in for all rare earth development or investment, that might not really serve the Malaysian interest, because now rare earth has become a geopolitical tool, or even a geopolitical weapon for China. That is the case, right? Right.
Yes, you can really, I think, can be interpreted this way. My major starting point is that we are not going to capture the essential technology that can boost our capabilities from the Chinese investment, just based on the fact that is allowing the export of any crucial technologies from China.
Yeah, so meaning, if I were to talk a little bit, meaning that the collaboration with China will not yield a lot of technology transfers to help to deliver these critical mineral industries in Malaysia, right?
Yeah, correct.
Right. Okay, we have a lot of interesting questions. I just want to quickly go to the last part of today's conversations. So we want to talk about China military in Taiwan. So everyone would have this kind of a populist questions, So just a week before the Fourth Plenum, we saw China's Communist Party actually expel the 9 top generals. It's one of the biggest public crackdown on the military in decades. After the initial crackdowns when Xi Jinping just got into the power in early 2000s, in early 2014.
2012, yeah.
12. I think they started the purge in 14, if I'm not mistaken. So, but the 9 men who were suspected of serious financial crime, a statement released by China Defense Ministry. Now, do you think this expulsion is we're going to affect any of the military timeline on any military timeline on Taiwan unifications, especially the general expel is the key military figures in Eastern Theater Command, which primary mission is the conduct of major operation against Taiwan.
I would say the operational impact will be rather minimal. Despite these are the officials that are, of course, positioned in the Eastern Theater Command, and some of them have the Navy background, and basically we consider the forefront if any actions going to take Taiwan. But we have to understand that the military capabilities are not built up by one or two or even a number of individuals and generals. The overall increase and improvements of the capabilities is serious, is real. It is not easily to be dismissed by the high-level corruption or cases or purges of these generals. And even if it is being impacted, the PLA operational capabilities is being impacted, it doesn't mean that it will not recover. And the time period of recovering from the negative impact of these personal changes may be actually shorter than what most people think. One not very good analogy, I would say not very good analogy, is the Soviet Union, before the Second World War, also pushed most of their most capable generals, and in the initial fight with the Nazi Germany also suffered tremendously. But that doesn't mean that it is going to be a permanent thing. After they get their feedback, they put the right people, and then they reconquer what they have lost, and so on and so forth. Of course, this is not a very good analogy, but I just want to highlight that do not read this purge of personnels as indicators that the operational capabilities of the military will be forever impacted. You will actually, I would say, within the time, the time period that this will actually pose a effect is shorter than what most people think. I was gonna say another thing. I so forgot. Yeah, the timeline. You mentioned that would that affect the timeline of unification? Well, that again come back to the question whether there is a real military unification timeline. The Chinese government has never really clearly said that there will be a timeline. It will only be forced into a military action under a very when their red line is clearly being violated, the red line that Beijing has drawn, which is still a very ambiguous red line, and then that allow them the room to interpret whether they want to take military action or not. And I personally don't think that there is a change or there is no, or how should I put it? There is no change in terms of the policy of no timeline at the moment. They are preparing for overtaking Taiwan militarily in case that option has to become a reality. But that doesn't mean that they are preparing to do it in any time soon, this year, next year, 2027, 2030. These are always the guessing game about the timeline. But I don't think that it actually is there. It is still somewhat, the parties still want to remain the options, whether they want to do it or not, rather than giving itself a timeline to definitely that they have to do it. So I don't think that is going to be this being affected by the purge of the generals.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. I was just about to ask the question which you have just answered. I was about to ask if to launch a military assault on Taiwan, what is the signal that we should look at, and what it will be the triggering signals for him to do so? So far, it seems that from Doctor, what you have explained, there's no clear plan. There's no a very rigid kind of KPI, you know, that they will launch or where when they will launch a military assaults or military unifications on Taiwan. Am I correct on this context?
All right. I think first, Xi wants to have this option. That is for sure. So the PLA is going to normalize a lot of the activities that they are currently conducting surrounding Taiwan, because this is increasing their abilities and capabilities to control. And if in the future they do need to launch a military actions, or this will be a parameters that they are setting up. They are not going to stop in terms of increasing their capabilities and then increasing the abilities to deter the US from intervening and other countries from intervening, and so on and so forth. And they are going to take certain opportunistic measures, you know, in Kinmen or whatever, to reassert or expand their operational presence surrounding Taiwan. This basically all point to one fact, is that Xi wants to have the option if and when he decides to go for it. So that we have to be clear. But that doesn't mean that he wants to do it now, today, tomorrow, or next day. There is no evidence whatsoever that he wants to do it anytime soon. He just wants to have this option absolutely clear when you want to do it, that the job can be done. So you can
Always on
see
the
the
table.
PLA. Yeah, the option is on the table. Before that, maybe the option is weakly on the table, is not so confident. He want to have a very strong confidence that the option is there. Whether you want to exercise the option, that is something that is decided by other factors. Now, what would be the trigger? The Chinese law, anti-secession law, drafted and legislated in 2005 is very clear about three conditions. That Taiwan, I think roughly meaning that there's a permanent separation, declaration of
Immutable
independence, blah, blah, blah.
separations.
Yeah. I think there is the wording is a permanent separation. The second is a major important event changes in Taiwan. And then the third is that I think I remember these are the three. The wording can be a bit different, but I think these are the three conditions. I think the first condition generally means declaration of independence, definitely go to war. The second is that if US re-establish diplomatic relations with Taiwan or with ROC, that means also basically war. But it's the third condition that is ambiguous. What do you mean by all peaceful reunification options are exhausted? That one is basically up to Xi Jinping to decide. Are we actually exhausting all the options? You can say yes, you can say no. You can say, oh, there are still people in Maiyinju in Taiwan, so it's not dead. So you can say, let's wait later. So no, but so far there's no clear evidence that Xi is triggered to do this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the ambiguous statements in the law is also to ensure all the options is on the table, like what you have mentioned just now.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So you also give them some rooms in a way. Some people will say, oh no, with the way that Lai Ching-te is behaving, is crossing the red line already. But you say that no, the third option, no, is still there. I mean, the third condition is still not fully fulfilled. So they can say no need to rush.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to spend the last 5 minutes to discuss one last interesting topics, which is the Chinese Communist Party succession plan. So a lot of times in the rivalry with US, China always posture in such a way that the long-termism. The long-termism of China governance under Xi is a blend of continuity and flexibility. So this is somehow an advantage over Western countries, where Western countries is very difficult to match because they have democratic elections. This is always stated in the state media Xinhua. Now, in fact, President Xi has been leading China for 13 years, amassing dominance to a degree unseen since Mao Zedong. He has shown no sign, at least until now, no signs of wanting to step down. Yet his longevity at the top could, if mismanaged, it will turn to become a political turbulence. So, do you see President Xi's long tenure as a strength or actually a critical weakness after 13 years?
Well, I think first, what they talk about, the continuity, long-term planning, the advantage or the supposed advantage of it is not depend on the individual leader. It's talking about how the party itself, how the system itself is able to plan long-term, regardless of who the individuals, or if one succeed the other, they will continue the previous policy rather than like like objecting all the things that have been done by the predecessor, like in the Western world or something like that. I think that is what they mean. So in that sense, they wouldn't see whether there is a successor or not as a problematic feature of the system. That is a different factor. But the system itself the stability of the system itself is strongly depends on whether the leadership itself is cohesive, and the succession issue exactly is one of the issues that is most difficult to deal with. You asked a question whether see 10 years, what does it tell?
Whether the 13 years tenure up to now is actually a strength for China, or it has become a weakness.
I think Xi got himself into a situation where he doesn't really know how to get out. Right? This is coming from me.
Elaborate more, please.
Well, I think one of the reasons why Xi needs 10 years is exactly because what he has experienced in the before he became the top leader. The 10-year period, basically 2 tenures. Usually the first tenure, you were living under the shadow of your predecessor. Because the predecessor will have a lot of say in appointing your Politburo Standing Committee colleagues together with the newly appointed General Secretary. This is what happened during Hu time. The first 5 years, he was living under the shadow of Jiang Zemin. So he couldn't do whatever he really want to do. So he was basically considered a weak leader. That is the reason. And the second 5 years, the second tenure, he is living under the shadow of his successor, that is Xi Jinping. Because Xi Jinping is appointed in the mid-year of Hu Jintao. He was already identified, putting into the Politburo Standing Committee that this is going to be the guy. He was being groomed as the next successor. He got the training, and I think towards the middle of the 5-year term, he got into the Central Military Commission, becoming the second civilian member of the Central Military Commission after Hu Jintao. And if you are officials in China, you know who is going to retire, and then you know Xi is going to take over, and you will align gradually more towards the successor, and then listen less and less to the current leader. So the 10-year, basically, first 5 years, first 5 years living under the past, and then 5 years in the future. So Xi saw that as something that he did not want. He will feel that, why should I be subject to? So that's one thing, he doesn't really want to have a successor. Because when you appoint a successor, a clear successor, and a very clear one that everyone know is going to take over, then the power alignment is very funny. They will slowly slip towards the successor.
You basically become a lame duck,
you become a lame duck because Yeah, that exactly what is it. I think this is what they fear lah. So that's why I think C is very concerned about this one. And if you look at C10, despite him being very powerful, consolidated, and so on and so forth, 2021 to 2022, these 2 terms, Politburo Standing Committee still got people he will consider is a leftover from the previous generation. Li Keqiang is a clear example. He had a working relationship with Li Keqiang, but it's very clear that these are not a happy go. So C will feel that I need another term to finally give me a free rein to shape my own team. So 2022 is all the president's men, Xi Jinping's men. I think this is the justification he put up why he need another term. He want to break away from the living under the predecessor and living under the successor. But now he got in a situation is that since
Off-ramp.
living, sorry?
No off-ramp, the situation.
Yeah, now it's a no off ramps. Now there is no clearly identified successor. Anyone that emerged as likely would be the target of a lot of jealous people or whatever rivals. So some of them are already originally being identified, like Chen Ming'e, I think was one of the favorite official by C, but he didn't get promoted and likely his chance is past already. So now there is a Chinese phrase called 枪打出头鸟. Now who is the clear one who got shoot down, right? And C C is in a situation where I think this is one of the headaches that that he probably will will have to figure out. But I think we will know by 2027, next term, whether there will be a successor, who will be. Yeah, the 21大, yeah. So now it's 20大嘛, 21大, and whether C will stay for another 5 years and so on and so forth, and who is going to be. For now, I think there is still going to be no successor for a while.
Yeah, so there's a question in the chat box. So if C is considering to step down, is there any capable successor? I think, Doctor, you have fully answered the questions. So far, no off-ramp.
I can say a bit more.
Yeah.
There is no clear rule if C step down now. Who is going to, because there's the Chinese system is funny in a way. It is 3-in-1. The top guy, meaning C, he's the president, general secretary, and chairman of the Central Military Commission. If he died today or step down today, the institutional or constitutional process of the 3 officers are actually very different. There is going to be a vice president that take over the president, so that is very clear. But the vice president today is not in the Politburo Standing Committee. And Han Zheng. General Secretary, if you step away, I suppose the number 2 on the Politburo Standing Committee should get the job. That would mean Premier Li Qiang. But the chairman of the Central Military Commission, I think will be Zhang Youxia, the number 1. So so one position will split into 3. So that's why they will ensure that C stays safe and doesn't really because there's it will be too messy. And the other question is that if let's say today C wants to give up, just hypothetically, I don't think he will appoint someone that is in the next generation, younger one. He will ask someone from the current to be the transitional role and until the next one to come to emerge. This is just speculation because of course we don't know. But I suppose there are only 2 that are very clearly who can play a role in a post-C scenario before next generation. Li Qiang and Cai Qi. All indications show that these 2 are the are the 2 Politburo Standing Committee colleagues of C that he trusts the most. I think it's either one of these 2.
It's 10 p.m., exactly 10 p.m. We have a super fruitful sessions, very interesting questions, very insightful sharings and conversations that we have with you, Doctor. Once again, thank you for willing to spend your time to be with us until 10 p.m. Glad to have you. And yeah, Doctor, if you do not mind, I will share your email to the audience. If they have any follow-up questions or if you have any engagement further for any arrangements, then probably they can talk with you on that. Is this something that is doable if I were to share your emails to the audience?
Yeah, no problem.
Right. So thank you everyone for staying with us for this 1.5 hours, especially to Dr. Ngiao. Very, very insightful sharings, and I truly think that a lot of these takeaway would be very, very useful for the Malaysians in positioning our geopolitical strategies with China and also in US in futures. So thank you so much, everyone, and good night. Thanks,
All right,
Doctor.
thank you. Good night.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.